Hi guys, it's Jamie here. Today I thought I'd mess around with some acrylics, try to use them as watercolours and just put the camera on and see what happened. I decided to try a Seascape because of the mermaid theme in Creator Club with a limited palette of Prussian blue, burnt sienna, Payne's grey and white. I've also got a piece of very thin flexible plastic, a big painter and decorators type brush, lots of clean water, some really cheap table salt, a normal bathroom type sponge that's just been torn in half, my Derwent Ink Intense in the colour bark, a scoring tool which I'll be using like you would an ink pen or a twig from the garden, my 300 gram cold press watercolour paper, and I've used washi tape to frame that out. Unfortunately, the first 5 minutes of this tutorial didn't record. I was using my plastic with the Prussian blue to create some kind of horizon on pre-soaked paper. Now I'm just using the big brush, which is really wet, to help pull that colour down into the wet paper below. And I'm going to pick it up and start to tilt that around. I'm trying to get a sea-like effect without overworking it, not using too many brush strokes. Trying to keep everything loose and abstract looking. And really, I'm not sure how much I can describe what I'm doing because this is all pretty intuitive stuff here. At this moment in the process, I'm just trying to get a straight horizon, knowing that the sea looks darker in the distance. Therefore, I'm trying to get the perspective through an impression by how the colours actually sit on the paper. I'm just picking it up and tilting it and letting those colours flow forward. Now I have a little bit of the sienna on my plastic card to give an impression of a sandy shoreline. As this is going on quite thickly, I take the big brush, add some more water, tilt the paper and just try to let it run. Where I feel like the colours have gone on a little bit too thickly, I use some kitchen paper towel to lift some of that colour out. Now I'm adding a touch of that salt along what would be the water's edge to see what effect that will have. I've switched to the burnt sienna and a brush to create a light sand dune entrance to the beach. Using the same brush, I've picked up a little bit of the Payne's grey to have a darker area, possibly rocks, possibly more sand dunes. It's very abstract. To try to create a bit more detail or shape, I've switched to the intensive bark watercolour pencil. Then with my brush, I'm going to help fade that. I'm needing to tip it because it's going too much into the sea. It's bringing a slightly different element to these shapes on the right hand side. As you can see, I keep adding pencil, adding a bit of water, lifting it off, and eventually even play with the piece of plastic to try to get a bit of definition to this area. Here I'm just adding a little bit more salt to that water line. And now I'm turning the whole thing around while I debate that horizon and the sky. For 11 years I lived in an area called Bournemouth in the UK, and from any beach, and there was at least 7 miles of them, you could always see some land in the distance. So I'm using my Payne's grey and burnt sienna mix to make a very impressionistic idea of a headland. Now I'm just wanting to add detail without adding too much detail. So basically I just play with the colours and the water until it begins to look something like I would imagine you see in the distance from a beach. I probably should have left it with the browner shade rather than the blue, but this is all about playing and experimenting. In this section, things start to go slightly wrong. I tried to add a tiny bit of turquoise because often you would see that in the sea, and then it was too strong, so I'm brushing it out. Here, while I'm pulling the colour across, I accidentally hit the sky. I then tried to pick it up with a bit of kitchen paper that's already got paint on it, so I stained the sky. This is what I mean by things start to go wrong, because that then wouldn't pull up. So eventually I just had to leave it, because otherwise I would end up overworking it and becoming frustrated, and this was meant to be for fun. So I moved back to just pulling some more colour through the sea, trying to get different shades and tones going on there. At this stage I turn it back round to see what on earth I can do with that sky. I know that watercolour is a reflection of sky colour, but I still want them to be distinct. I end up deciding that I'm going to just reflect the colours that have already been used in the bottom 2/3 of the painting into the sky. Having looked at it for a couple of minutes, I decide the next thing it really needs is some kind of white going through it to represent waves. As I have white on my brush, I start to use it to create some effect of light coming through the sky onto the headland, and then I pick that white up even further at the foreground dune area with some stronger colours on the plastic. I've dipped my scoring tool into the Payne's grey, and I'm making just random little marks in that foreground because no sand is perfectly clear and yellow. Having accidentally done quite a big blob and struggling to get it off, I decide to use the plastic dipped in the Payne's grey to make some wild grasses. Off camera, I added a few more grasses in a slightly different shade of grey, and I was going to let it all dry off and come back and maybe add some more dramatic sea. But when I came back when it was dry, I actually quite liked it as it was, so just started to peel back the washi tape. Unfortunately, some of the colour did bleed through the washi, which means that I didn't get a perfectly clean framing of the picture. Normally you'd frame and mount a picture like this anyway, so to get that impression, I just used some titanium white and blocked out some of that colour, and that's it. My very abstract seascape. First time I've ever done anything like this. The orangey sky isn't really reflected in the water. There are plenty of faults with it. Still, for a first attempt at trying something like this, I'm pretty happy with it. I hope you enjoyed this unintended walkthrough tutorial of me messing around trying to do an abstract seascape. Let me know what you think of it in the comments and if you're going to have a go yourselves. And I will catch you very, very soon. Bye.